Hi, my name is Marc Divinet. I am a consultant in B2B marketing and I teach B2B marketing in different universities, business schools or engineering schools. This video is aiming at helping you to understand and take the decisions as if you were a B2B marketing director. So this first video will be about strategic decisions, and a second video will be dedicated to operational decisions. So what is the case we are going to work on? It's a case called B2B Corp. It's a company which is manufacturing printed circuit boards, PCBs, as you have here a photograph on the slide. So you can imagine these PCBs can be everywhere. As soon as you have a little bit of electronics in a device, they will need such a board. The company has 9 factories, 2,200 employees, and a revenue of 400 million euros. So the customers are most of the time large customers, over 250 employees, and the competition is made of companies which are making PCBs from the order, which are device manufacturers, and they are called original equipment manufacturers. Some others are manufacturing both the device and their PCBs. They are called the original design manufacturers. And other indirect competition are companies which are design offices, which are not manufacturing, but they are making the design of the PCBs. So somewhat they have a big influence on the PCB manufacturers. This business field is surrounded by a lot of experts, consultants, regulators who are influencing most of the decisions taken by the actors. Now I suggest that you take a few minutes, you make a stop, you look at, read this text, which is giving you more explanation about who is doing what, and when you are done, then you come back and we continue with the video. So make a stop, read it, and come back. So what are the main issues we have with this company? First is that the sales cycle is very long. It takes 9 months to make a decision, and that's very long. So how can we improve that? The second is that the process itself is complex because the customer is issuing a tender. Out of this tender, a lot of emails back and forth appears between customers and suppliers. A lot of exchange of files appears, and a prototype of a PCB is made and which is tested by the customer, this test is called a POC, a proof of concept, and the talks are as a minimum with product managers and project leaders inside the company organization of the customer. Of course, you have a lot of negotiation about technical features and about the price of it. So today, PCB Corp has a very limited communication activity, as many B2B companies, unfortunately. And today, the ratio of how many tenders go to sale is only 9%, and the net promoter score, which is a satisfaction score, is only 12%, and the retention rate is 70%, which means that 30% of customers are not buying a second time. So when we go through strategic analysis in B2B, we first have a look on the business field, which means that we look at what are the actors and what are their relations and the links between those actors. So we see here that important actors are the component manufacturers because, of course, they made the components which will be installed on the PCBs by the manufacturers. And then you have 2 types of manufacturers, as we said, the OEM like PCB and the ODM, which are manufacturing both devices and PCBs. Both are selling to product manufacturers who are selling to their distributors who are selling to end users. So if we take the example of a fridge, you have components like microprocessors who are produced by component manufacturers like Intel. They are sold to ODM, which are fridge manufacturers, for example, or they are sold, so ODM were also product manufacturers, or they are sold to OEM like PCB, who are manufacturing the PCB and selling it to the fridge manufacturer. Then the fridge manufacturer sells to his distributors network, who are selling to you and me, and you and I, who are using a fridge. So out of that, we see that the relations are made of contracts of components which can be, in fact, custom made. Also, we can see that the printed circuit boards are also custom made, but the final product, which is the fridge, is not custom made. It is distributed as a standard. And when a product is custom made, it makes strong relations between the supplier and the customer. We see also that you have the design offices who have a big influence on the product manufacturers, and consultants and regulators will have an influence. So as a first step, we could say, well, it seems that PCB Corp is not providing the full solution. They are not designing the PCB, and consultants have an influence. So we could say maybe PCB Corp could communicate with those consultants and regulators to understand what type of influence they have and if they could influence in the right direction towards their own providing. The second thing we have to analyze is the customer need. And what we see is that the customer need varies a lot from one customer to another. First, the technological level is different. A customer who wants a printed circuit board on a satellite will have a requirement on the technological performance, which is very high. As for the fridge, which is not lasting 10 years, then it's different. The second level, which is varying a lot, is the volume. Of course, for a satellite, you will have a small volume, sometimes only one PCB. As for a fridge manufacturer or radio manufacturer, we have millions, tens of millions of PCBs which are necessary to produce. And the other criteria, which makes it very different from common markets, commodity market or B2C markets, is that the durability can vary a lot. Some products must vary must have a very long duration. It could last 40 years, 50 years. Sometimes some PCB boards will have to last 50 years. You imagine in a nuclear central station, the duration must be extremely long, or in a train, it must be also extremely long. So these are the three elements which vary a lot, the technological level, the volume, and the durability level. So, of course, when we have made this exercise of the customer need and the customer profile, we want to understand how we could make a segmentation and focus on the best customers, which today PCB Corp is not doing. PCB Corp is answering tenders wherever they come from. And that's an issue of the problem they have, because some requirements are very high and then the quality is not matching the expectations of the customers. So when we look at the technology, the volume, and the durability in this chart, and we make a cross with the sectors, we see that there are some indications of correlation. For example, in aeronautical industry, the technology is very high-tech, the volume is very low, and the durability is very high. In the automotive, the technology is mid-size, the volume is quite big, but not the biggest, and the durability is also mid-size. In the medical equipment, you have a high technology, a low volume, but not a very low volume, and a high durability. So this correlation between sectors and strategic criteria is very interesting, because instead of screening thousands of companies to understand and ask them what is your volume, what is the durability that you expect, instead of doing that, I could choose the sectors which have this in common, this type of the same profile of purchase. And that's the movement coming from strategic criteria, technology, volume, and durability, to operational criteria where it's easy to find the address, and here it will be sectors, which also will be with the size, because the more size you have, and probably there is a link with the volume, and the geographical area, because of course that's very operational. I know that if there are some concentrations of industries somewhere, it will save for me a lot of money of distribution. The third element that you have to analyze is the purchase process. Understanding the purchase process allows to understand how you are going to sell. And here we see that we have 5 people in the purchase center, which is the group of persons who contribute to the purchase. We have the buyer, we have the product manager who has made the idea of the product, and the project manager who is in charge of producing the R&D prototypes before manufacturing. And we have the design office who has made the design of the PCB board which will be produced, and some consultants, experts, which are giving their advice. So what are their roles? In fact, the initiator is the project leader, because he is the guy who is asking for the purchase of a new PCB. The project manager is going to the buyer and he says, try to find suppliers of this type of, in fact, of PCBs designed by a design office. So the buyer will be responsible for the purchase procedure. He will be a negotiator together with the project manager, who is very interested in the price because it will be included in the price of his product. And we have the buyer who is going to give contacts to the salespeople as a Sherpa. The influencer will be the design office, who is making the design of the product. And the absolute influencer can be an expert saying, because this guy could say, don't take this technology, or don't take this type of supplier, and don't take this product which is not compatible with some regulations. So some experts are very important, which should be understood. And finally, the decision will be taken by buyers, product managers, and project managers. All those people have their own criteria of choice. It can be the price for the buyer, it can be more the functions for the product managers, and it will be more the performance for the project manager. It means that we have to provide information for that, and marketing director will have to provide a procedure so that anytime the sales managers can get this information and deliver it to the customer during the purchase process. The second element to analyze a purchase process is the steps. What are the different steps? And here, as we have seen, there is a step which is including a tender. So the first step is the need identification. That's the project manager who says, I have a need for a PCB. Then there is a step where specifications are written. And here, the most important person who will make the specification will be the design office. He will do that in strong correlation with experts and project managers. When this is ready, the buyer will make it public. He will make public with an RFI saying, we are looking for a manufacturer of PCBs, and an RFP who's saying, please send me your quotation with price and with performance, which are compliant to our design. And after that, they make the short list of the suppliers. They negotiate together, buyer and project manager. They make their choice, including the product manager. They make the POC, as we said, together with the design office, the purchase made by the buyer. And after that, there is an evaluation of the quality of the product. So now we have made the analysis. we have to make the decisions. So the first important decision is the 6P strategy. And as you know, we have 6 possibilities, and a mix of possibilities is preferable globally compared to just one possibility. So what is the options that we have? First, should we continue the place strategy for all segments? That's the first possibility. This is what today PCB Corp is doing. And of course, we would prefer to have PCB Corp more focused on the best segments where they are sure that the quality is going to be good and the satisfaction of the customer will be at a high level, which is today not the case. So we would forget place and we would focus more on more profitable segments. Then profit is a strategy where you eliminate a lot of customers and you focus on the best one, the most profitable with high price. This is possible today, but it will have an elimination of many customers and a reduction of revenue. So that's not probably what we want for this company. So then what we have is also an option which is you stay place, but in a limited place, and you have add a price additional strategy, which means that you reduce your price, you extend reasonably your presence and your coverage, and you have then the security to increase your revenue. Of course, it's a little risky because you may lose money and you may also have still unsatisfied customers. The second option is an option with performance, where you say, okay, I'm looking for one performance loop by specific customers, and I try to pursue my promise by giving the right control and the right procedures inside and outside the company, and make it sure that we are going to perform. And that's an interesting criteria because it's a green criteria and it's a growing need. People want products which are more and more performant. The third option is the pull option, where in fact here you add services or products and you extend your range so that as soon as you have sold a PCB to a customer, you are able to make cross-selling and sell more. And that's the option we want to follow, which is a mix of performance and pull, where we would like to have a performance where we promise the durability, and a pull where we increase, in fact, our offer by the design of the PCB, so we have a more global solution. So that would mean that what can be then our business model? So we have a business model today which is manufacturer, and if we look at what means performance and pull, it would mean that we offer then also a design office. We become also a design officer, or we have an alliance with a design office which is providing this design of the PCBs. Of course, we could add also additional services like warehousing, delivery, component supplier choice, and certification of the PCBs. The two options are the following. Either we make an alliance with design offices or we purchase design offices. And we suggest here, but both are possible, we suggest to go to option 1. We make an alliance, and we could have the surprise that design offices are very focused on some sectors and some areas, and then we have to understand what is the mapping of those design offices in the world, what can be the partnerships, and then after that, after a few years, we decide to acquire some of them. So that's our prudent proposal of strategy. It would mean that which sector are the most interested in this durability positioning, and we have seen after screening all the sectors which are using this type of device using electronics, it is the SIC code and standard industry code 28, which is the manufacturing of machinery, the 29 of vehicles, motor vehicles, and the 30 other transport manufacturers. And that gives us 1,200 companies in UK and over 250 employees and 7,000 in Europe. So that's quite a good number, a minimum number, when we consider that Europe is about a quarter of the industry of this type, of this SIC codes. Then we have around 25,000-30,000 companies to prospect, which is already a nice figure. So what would be our services? We are using here the Flower of Service tool. This Flower of Services will integrate guarantee, delivery, and customization as everyone is doing, but also PCB integration training, manufacturing technology consultancy, repair technical training, and that's something which is new. Now, you are helping customers for their manufacturing operations, the warehousing, the PCB design, the component supplier choice, and certification support. So this is giving a global solution to customers. It will be much more comfortable for salespeople who are today only selling a limited part, and it will bring revenue and more intimacy with customers, with more elements to talk before the manufacturing. This would mean an alliance to go forward. To go forward, we need an alliance with design offices, which could be a lot of design offices according to the areas. It would mean also that with some of them which are not an alliance with us, it will be people who are just lead providers. They have made a design of a PCB, and they could give us the name of the customer who is going to manufacture the device, and we could help them also by proposing our solutions of PCBs with our performance. So it could be an informal lead provider type of alliance. So as a final decisions on the strategic side, we have to decide our positioning and make it clear to employees and also to all the customers. So for that, we use the brand formula, which is answering to 4 questions. The first one is, who are we? We are manufacturers of PCBs. What do we sell? We buy components and we sell PCBs. We sell to whom? We sell to manufacturers of machinery and motor vehicles. And then what do we promise? We promise low failure and durability. And this can be put in a baseline below the name of PCB Corp, which is already telling the sector, PCBs of course, and that's comfortable. It will be a baseline saying PCB Corp, reliability and durability. And that's the end for this first video. I hope you enjoyed that. Don't hesitate to watch it a second time. As you can see, there are plenty of decisions, plenty of analysis in B2B. And that's for this example, it shows you a nice look of what are the job of the marketing director in B2B companies. Thank you very much and see you in the second video in a while.